Hey guys, it's Monday, 10:58 p.m. on September 10th, 2018, and I want to share some observations I have with regard to this pending doom and dread of Hurricane Florence, which is about 1,200 miles off the coast of the United States right now. First, what I want to do is appeal to any of my peers out there that are remember watching the news from anytime over the last 30 years up until about 10 years ago. We used to be able to watch the weather, and they used to show us radar, and they used to show us storms that were on radar. Like, see these piles of clouds up here, up in the northeastern part of the United States. We used to be able to watch these storms because our meteorologists would show these storms on radar, and we would be able to track them. They don't do that anymore because what also appears on the radar is what I'm trying to point out here from tonight, how we go from being, and let me see if I can actually stop this. Let's see, I'm going to stop here. Well, I tried to stop. It's not letting me stop. There we go. Okay, what I'm showing you right now is that there's nothing in Michigan. There's hardly anything going on in Ohio, Indiana, all these states here. It's pretty clear, right? But in a matter of 15 minutes, all of 15-minute increments over the course of 2 hours, all of the eastern part of the United States through to the Midwest is going to suddenly get clouds. Now that is happening, and if you look at the map, you're going to notice it's happening at major metropolitan areas and along major interstates. Why? Because this is where we have our quote-unquote cell phone towers. This is a NEXRAD radar thing, you guys. This is actually picking up moisture that is aggregating up in the clouds in these particular areas, and this is not natural, which is why they're not showing us the radar so much anymore, especially national radar, where you can actually see this. I want you to see our country turn on like a Christmas tree. Watch this. You guys, this isn't normal. Now, I can tell you right from Michigan, I can tell you very specifically, just looking at the mitten here, as this is turning on, what we have is we have Metro Detroit electrocuting its sky. Then we have the areas across 94 here. We have the southern part, or the northern part here where Grayling is. That's electrocuting the area. And then we have this Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo area, the western coast here, just radiating the heck out of the atmosphere. It's not like a storm is coming across from Lake Michigan. It's not like moisture is coming down from northern Michigan. You guys, this is just because literally these towers are radiating the heck out of our atmosphere, and clouds are quite literally forming overhead, and this is what the radar is picking up. Unlike natural clouds, like we see over here in the northeastern part of the state, of the country, where we actually do have little cells of storms that are passing through New York and Maine and so forth. No, what we're going to see when I play this again is we're going to see that our country lights up like a freaking Christmas tree. Watch this, you guys. That is not normal, okay? That's not normal. That's not how storms usually form. So anyway, I just thought I'd point that out. And another thing I want to point out here is what's going on down here in Florida. Look at this really strange stuff. It's like they're zapping Florida. And this is all happening from the ground, you guys. This is not some weird stuff in outer space. These are the cell phone towers that we have that are radiating our atmosphere. Okay, but watch what's happening here in Florida. It's like those little streamers that they put on the outside of air conditioners that start blowing? Look at it. They're just blowing off the coast, straight off the coast, which is very, very rare. Usually weather takes a bend. The storms don't usually go straight from the inside of the coast right off the coast. So there's something really heavy duty happening in northern Florida. Actually, I'd say all along this part of the coast. There's something really intense happening here. So we'll just have to keep an eye on this. I don't know what any of that means other than I just know what's causing it, and I think it's worthy of pointing out, because if you guys used to watch the weather, you know that this is stuff they used to show us this, but the reason they don't anymore is because of this. I don't know if America's smart enough to figure it out anymore. I just know it's very troubling. Okay, so let me stop this, and let's take a peek here. We have this Hurricane Florence. It's a really big deal. So let's take a peek at the measurable stuff. I love metrics. You guys know that. I love to be able to plot and chart my data. So here's what we get from the National Hurricane Center as of 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. today. It says that there are no coastal watches or warnings in effect. Actually, you should go ask the folks in South and North Carolina. Apparently, they're closing schools, and there are some, but not issued by NOAA. Very interesting thing to notice there. But let's see what it says about this hurricane. It says this hurricane is located 25.4 north, 61.1 west. So I went to Google Earth, and here, you guys, is this hurricane. Now, this other little dot that I have here that's 410 miles away just happens to be the closest station that we have a buoy stationed at. Now, just like what I discovered with the hurricanes that were supposedly about ready to take out the state of Hawaii, and Hawaii doesn't get hurricanes, you guys. These were very, very strange things. And just to demonstrate that is that this National Oceanic Administrator's Office doesn't have any buoys stationed in the trajectory of either of the hurricanes that were supposedly heading towards Hawaii. It wasn't until they got really close that we could actually measure these storms, and those storms were about half the strength of hurricanes. So there was something else going on, because for 4 days before these hurricanes supposedly came close to Hawaii, we couldn't actually measure them in the water. And what's interesting about the way that we have our tax-funded metrics of these little buoys flowing in the water is, you guys, everywhere that there has ever been a major storm before, believe me, we have one of these stupid buoys flowing there. Because it's by these buoys that we actually measure whether or not the wind speeds have hit 74 miles an hour or not. If it doesn't hit 74 miles an hour, it is not a hurricane. And that is what these buoys are for. And they're streamed with live data. Okay, so if we actually go to look at the conditions of this buoy right now, what we're going to see is that the winds are normal. Wind speeds are 29.1 knots. That's totally normal for being out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So all that we can chart on at this particular time, based on the data we've gotten, is that we have a hurricane, supposedly, on the outside about 1,200 miles from the United States. So let's just take this measurement. Yeah, it's about 1,248 miles. Now, what I'm going to point out to you based on that CNN report is that they're actually saying that it's heading straight for, the Carolinas. I want to know how they know that. If you guys remember watching weather reports from back in the day when they actually used accurate meteorological information to inform the public how this stuff worked, you know that 1,200 miles of water has a lot of potential variance that could impact the direction or trajectory of any hurricane. There's variant temperatures in the water. You have variant wind fronts and meteorological, barometric pressure changes. There are a lot of things, temperatures, pressure, lots of things, water temperature that could all change the course of this. And it wouldn't, you guys, 1,200 miles is such a big difference in distance. I want you to think about that. If you guys just change the angle of trajectory a little bit on the course of a 1,200-mile journey, you could end up all the way up in Maine. You can end up taking out South America. You can end up wiping out Florida. How do they know where this thing is going to go? There's so much potential for variation here that you can't even, there's not even, this stuff is mind-boggling to me, that the analytical skills and thinking of the American public right now is at such an all-time low that people are not even concerned about the nonsense that we're getting on the news. And the news, you guys, you got to be careful. They did not repeal the Smith-Mundt Act for nothing. They did it on purpose. And if you don't know what the Smith-Mundt Act is, you guys look into it. It was the law that protected the American public, the U.S. citizen, from being assaulted by propaganda from corporations and our government. It was the one law that kept the United States from using the media as a propaganda agent against its own people. So let's take a look at the CNN report, and I'm going to share some of my observations with you on this.
Breaking news, a massive Category 4 hurricane is heading straight for the East Coast.
Okay, right now I just have to say, how the heck do they know that? They don't tell us how they know that. They just tell us that that's where it's going. And I just showed you guys that there are 1,200 miles between the hurricane and where they're saying it's going to hit, and just a fraction of a change in trajectory could make it take out Maine.
Hurricane Florence stays that strong. It'll be the most powerful hurricane to hit the Carolinas in nearly 30 years. Joining me now on the phone from a plane that just flew over the hurricane is Paul Flaherty. He's the flight director for NOAA Hurricane Hunters. He's also a meteorologist. Paul, thanks very much for coming on now.
Okay, this is Paul on a plane flying over the hurricane. And I have something about which I'd like to complain. That Paul on the plane forgot to bring his camera. Okay? Just a small little detail, because they're actually billing this news clip as a hurricane hunter live from plane over Category 4 storm. What they neglect to tell you is that this dude forgot to bring his camera. He forgot to bring his camera, but what you're going to find out later in this clip is that some CNN viewers brought their camera on planes yesterday, and they're going to show you those clips. But the dude who absolutely should have taken his camera here, the one who works for this National Oceanic Atmospheric Administrator's Office, dude forgot to bring his camera on this plane. Okay, so we're not going to get any live photograph from the plane that just flew over the hurricane, but we're going to get yesterday's news clips from some viewer. So let's pay attention to the things that they say, because they use all sorts of trigger words, and I want to pay very close attention to what they say.
Tell us what you saw when you flew over this storm.
Well, this is the third day I've been flying the storm on this aircraft with this crew, and it is greatly increased in its strength over these last 3 days. We did expect to find a much stronger storm today, which we did. It was a little bit eroded on the south side, which we weren't expecting to see, and we're hoping maybe it'll cause it to weaken a little. It certainly allowed it to stop rapidly intensifying at about 940 to 945 millibars. But people have to know that the forecast of this thing coming into the U.S. as a major Category 4, potentially Category 5 storm. This is extremely important. They need to be paying attention.
We're looking at...
Okay, so here we go with the trigger. They say to pay attention. So let's do that. Let's pay really close attention to what they just showed us. Let's just recap here. We've got Paul in a plane who didn't bring his camera. So we are seeing pictures of a hurricane. Actually, we're seeing two kinds of pictures of a hurricane. One is a cartoon, clearly, because there's no such thing as a red and green and yellow meteorological event. Okay, hopefully we can all agree on that. And then we have this thing, which looks like a time lapse from where? From a plane? No. From a satellite? I don't know. From outer space? They don't actually tell us where this particular picture came from. All right? So let's just keep an eye on this.
Storm.
Well, this is the third day I've been flying the storm on this aircraft with this crew.
Okay.
Increased in its strength over these last 3 days. Did. It was a little bit eroded on the south side.
Now this picture looks significantly different than the one we just saw. Now what we're going to find out from news script reader here is that this is a picture from NASA, but he's also going to show us a picture from the International Space Station. So we've got 4 different views of this, and nobody's actually going to take credit for it, and we don't really know where it's coming from. And they don't bother to explain, but that it's from NASA. And one of them, he says, is from the International Space Station. So let's listen.
Which we weren't expecting to see, and we're hoping maybe it'll cause it to weaken a little. It certainly allowed it to stop rapidly intensifying at about 940 to 945 millibars. But people have to know that the forecast of this thing coming into the U.S. as a major Category 4, potentially Category 5 storm. This is extremely important. They need to be...
Okay, now these winds are supposed to be going 140 miles an hour. You guys, this cloud does not move. This cloud does not move. None of these clouds move. These clouds should be going about 60 miles an hour. They're not moving. I want you to just pay attention to that, because these are details that actually matter. If we have a space camera out there somehow that's taking a picture of this as it's flying over, it should be able to capture a picture of these clouds moving, and they should be moving very fast, you guys. This is a Category 4 hurricane, but that's not what we're seeing in this image.
Storm. This is extremely important. They need to be paying attention.
We're looking at some video now, our viewers, from a flight yesterday.
Okay, now, this is what they're telling us. This is from viewers on a flight yesterday. Okay, what are viewers? Viewers would be CNN people, audience of CNN people. Okay, so now let's take a look at the actual wing on this airplane, because you guys, I used to work for a very large corporation, and I was flying every single week. So I was one of those kind of people that would get first class tickets because I flew so often, I would get them for free. And I flew on a bunch of different planes all over this country. Okay, so much flying. But I, in my whole life, have never seen an airplane wing like that. I've never seen one like that. So what viewers are they? This looks like some sort of a military airplane. This does not look like a typical CNN viewer airplane. But this is the view of the hurricane they're showing us. This is the view. Okay, this was taken by a CNN viewer yesterday. Now watch what happens on this flight that this viewer just happens to be on. Okay, and a plane, airplane wing I've never seen before. In a couple of seconds, it's going to change dramatically. And it's not going to look anything like the pictures we just saw.
In that time frame, how much stronger has the storm been getting each time you take a look at it?
Okay, now here we go. Now this is the storm right here, supposedly. Now I want you to look carefully at this. So we're at 122. Let's go back to this image here. Do they look anything alike, you guys? Do they look anything alike? I want you to look one more time here because this is what gets me so mad. This is just a circular cloud pattern. And what you're going to see is this very strange wing on an airplane is going around like it's coming in on a landing, and this just happens to be a circular cloud pattern. But the way that they're actually filming it is making it look like it could be the hurricane. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not analyzing what you're actually seeing, if you're not bringing critical thought into this, you guys, you can just see where the brain-dead public would just slap this stuff up and never take a moment to think, what are we being shown? What are they actually telling us? You guys, it's like somebody spilling ketchup all over the floor and crying bloody murder. We have to look and see what we're actually looking at. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't mean that there's not trouble heading towards southeastern United States. If they tell you guys that 40 inches of rain are going to come to your area, get the heck out of there. I mean, seriously. I don't know if winds are going to take your town out. I don't know. Follow the instructions of the authorities. That's what you need to do to be safe, okay? But look at the media. Look at the stuff they're telling you. We need to look at this on many levels. So let me just keep playing this.
Take a look at it.
I mean, does this look anything like the storm that they just showed us, the 3 different views of the storm from supposedly outer space?
Yeah, well, we were watching it as the eye wall was forming yesterday. We had an interesting view yesterday on the G4, and of course with our P3 inside the eye of the storm.
I mean, look at this. This is not a hurricane, you guys. And yet CNN is literally presenting this as if this is a hurricane. Are we idiots? Well, if you don't stop and look and analyze what you're actually absorbing, then yeah, the people who are believing this stuff are idiots.
And yeah, we were watching it develop, and you know, you just have that kind of sick feeling in your gut. We went through this with Irma in Florida last year, and of course, the last couple of years, everyone up the East Coast has been concerned about one storm or another, and so it doesn't change whether it's heading for our house or in this case, you know, somewhere around North Carolina to Virginia, South Carolina. We all know people up there, and it just kind of hits you in the gut when you see this thing strengthening, and you know that the forecast is calling for it to come in as such a strong storm. So yeah, we don't like what we're seeing. I don't think you guys.
Okay, now here's another thing. He's going to tell you to look at the scale. All right, and so since this video image comes before him using the word scale, I want you to look at the scale here. He's going to tell us that this is coming from the International Space Station, you guys. Would you please just look at the scale of this? This storm is supposed to be the size of South Carolina or North Carolina, I don't know. But it's supposed to be the size of a relatively small state in our country. And would you look at the curvature of the globe? Okay, if this is the size of North or South Carolina, you guys, this globe can't contain anything more than the United States itself. This is a very, very small globe. So how did the International Space Station take such a distorted image of our globe? How did they miss the rest of the entire planet? You guys, people need to start thinking about the things that we're looking at. I mean, what is this? Is this space junk? Did we just happen to catch a satellite flying over this at the same time this International Space Station was? You guys, these pictures don't make sense.
Like much of what you're seeing on the ground either.
Well, listen, we're showing now a picture from space snapped by an astronaut from the International Space Station. You get
Okay,
a real-
so this is snapped by an astronaut. What, they just whip out their cell phone? Is that what we're using for our meteorological data? Because we don't have buoys in the water that are detecting anything. We don't have Paul on the plane with a camera himself to take a picture of the hurricane. We have some CNN viewer on some really weird looking plane that I've never seen a wing of like that before, taking pictures of some cloud formation from yesterday. And we've also got astronauts in outer space. Give me a break.
really get a sense of the scale there, the size.
Okay, so see, this is where I say, you guys, they mock us. They mock us. You really get a sense of the scale of the size. Would you please look at the scale of the size of the globe and the state of North Carolina, which they say is right here in the crosshairs of this hurricane? Please look and see, you guys.
The state of North Carolina, which as it happens is right in the crosshairs of this storm. We made comparisons to Harvey, but as far as the East Coast is concerned, biggest since 1989.
Okay, so now this is supposed to be the International Space Station taking this picture. The dude's taking it from his cell phone, I guess. You know, one of those astronaut guys up there with his free hand, because his other hand, don't forget, his other hand is plugging a hole in the spaceship. Because remember, they hit space junk the other day, and they have a 2mm hole. So one of them is holding the hole together and his finger on the International Space Station, you know, because his finger is going to save him from the vacuum of space. But with his other hand, he can take a picture of this hurricane that they're flying over. But I want you to notice that this hurricane, you guys, this hurricane doesn't move at all. These clouds don't move at all.
In your view, how dangerous is this storm?
Well, it is very, very dangerous. It's life-threatening. One of the things is...
Yeah, this storm is moving 140 miles an hour in this circle here, but you're not going to see that happen. No. No, maybe the astronaut needed two hands. Maybe with his finger plugging a hole in the spaceship, he couldn't actually take a picture of it spinning at 140 miles an hour.
We come out here, we do everything we can. We want to make sure that we get the best data going to the National Hurricane Center, the NOAA National Hurricane Center, and the models, and to the emergency managers and to the media, so we can get people out of the way, because it is a life-threatening situation, and every time there's going to be those people who decide to stay. And, you know, we read about their names and their stories, and we want to try to know why they didn't go. I just want to make sure none of your viewers that I'll be reading about them here later in the week.
It's good advice. Heed those warnings. Heed those orders.
Heed the orders and heed the warnings. Now, I do agree with them on this, because these guys know far more about what's coming in the direction of North Carolina than I do. I'm just telling you that what they're trying to tell you is coming is not what's actually coming. Something's coming, and it's going to hit the Carolinas, and it's going to hit wherever they say it's going to hit. And if they say 40 inches of rain, you guys can bet that if they have to open the fire hydrants to get you guys 40 inches of rain, that's what you're going to get. But it's not going to be because they're actually tracking hurricanes with Paul on the plane who forgot his camera, while the dudes in the International Space Station are taking pictures of hurricanes that aren't actually moving on a globe that's about the size of my fist. And, you know, you've got viewers from CNN taking pictures from what looks like military aircraft. Okay, there's just a lot going on here that doesn't make any sense, you guys. And, of course, I love you guys, so I'm telling you all this, and I'm sure that you are commiserating with me as you watch these videos. And that's that. I will keep you posted as this stuff gets closer to the buoys. You know, if it gets closer to the buoys, we'll be able to actually measure this. But in the meantime, we just have to go by what they're telling us, and it seems to me like a bunch of nonsense.